make sure you list your current team on the Google Sheet. Can I switch APIs? Again, yes, you can if you really want, but it's not a requirement, right? The goal is to keep the API you did for the midterm and go ahead and proceed with that into the final. Where can I find the Google Sheet link? Well, just like for the midterm, it is linked at the bottom of the final project assignment. Most folks have seemed to have found it because here we have the submission so far. There are a couple of teams missing here. So if we look, I'm here on row 2. So we just have 3 through 11. That's definitely short of some teams. So that means some folks haven't made, I guess, their adjustments on which team they would like to join, or a mix of moving teams, reorganizing teams. But please make sure you and your team, right, this should be done by end of day today. Hopefully by end of day today, you know whether you're going to stay in your same team, which team you're joining, which API you'd like, et cetera, et cetera. Again, if you're not changing anything, all you need to do is just submit your team from the midterm and submit your API from the midterm. You're good to go. That's what most folks, I recognize some of these teams and these APIs, so that's what most people have done so far. If you are switching teams or final, again, just make sure you put that on here. I should see I think there's probably like a couple more outstanding teams. So I'm probably missing with the 3, 11. Looks like maybe 3 or 4 teams are missing here. So I hopefully those 3 or 4 teams can get organized, put together their list of names and their API choice here. Going back, and of course, extra credit quiz, like we already talked, extra credit attendance, that's today, just 75% of the session. So if the session lasts just a half hour or an hour, as long as you're 75% of that time, right? It's not an amount of time, it's just a percentage of time. Therefore, you can get your credits. And again, extra credit attendance opens this evening. So with that being said, that's all I really have. This is a Q&A session. Really, I don't have anything to present. All the code that is available and presented for the class is available here. So if you're curious about what the cards app server looks like completed, you can check that out right here on week 15. That is the completed version of our cards app server, which is a guide to help you in your final. So if you haven't looked at that, you should definitely download that and use that as sort of the same way we use the CLI to some kind of direction and help for how you should structure and organize your final project. Again, other than that, today is just the Q&A session for you guys to ask any questions, express any comments, concerns.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can we arrange teams here in this Zoom meeting?
No. You can go ahead and arrange that privately, either in the Discord, if you want to use the meeting chat to do that. But in terms of like verbal communication and that's not what this Zoom meeting is for. This is for a Q&A. And if folks are trying to arrange, that means I can't answer any questions with a bunch of talk going on. So really, that should be organized outside of this meeting and should have been organized really prior to this meeting today, since it's been about a week. So I would recommend our Discord, email, and also there is a discussion open for final project group assistance. So you can certainly, chat privately during this time, but in terms of vocalizing the organization, I'm going to leave it only open to answering questions. So a question in the chat is, do you think you could do a demo of the card server running? Yes, I'm more than happy to do a demo of the DECA card server running so that we showcase that from last week. So I'm more than happy to do that because that is definitely related to the final and gets us some insight into how we could, maybe work on our final, how we could structure our final, very applicable to the final. So let's go into, that was week 15 here. And so we're going to go into our card server app completed. So that's going to go into here, card server app completed. If we do a click ls, we can see that we don't have our node modules installed just yet. So hopefully everything is in the package.json. It is in the package.json since we filled that out a lot together. Therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and run that npm install here. And so that's going to go ahead, of course, as usual. By now, we should know that installs all of our modules for our server application. And now we can go ahead and if we take a look in our DecaCard server from here, we can look at our package.json. We can see we have this alias script here to start our server in this development mode. And so we could just start it with node server. If we do start it with node server, that properly does spin up our server. However, that doesn't spin up our server in dev mode. And therefore, we do want to spin up our server in dev mode, especially if we are developing actively. That's what I was showcasing last week. So I'm going to just showcase how to start it in dev mode, just so that you have some insight into how to do that. So that would be npm run dev. This now starts our server and our server and on port 8888. So just a quick comment. I found a team with 7 members. Right. The goal really is to have 6 members to a team. In extreme circumstances, I could potentially allow the 7th, but there's a lot of teams, right? We still have some time. I mean, we have a little bit of time, but looking at a lot of these, right? Somebody submitted during class, and I appreciate that. So thank you. So let's just wrap that. If you have a team with 7 members, there might be a team here with only 5 members. Right. If a team is already at 7 members, that would make you the 8th member, and that's far too many people, right? Potentially, if you're just the 7th team member, then I could, that's something we could work out. But 8 team members is already pushing the limit way too far. There's just not enough work for 8 people, and there's not enough explanation time for 8 people. So really 7 would be, my max has always been 6. I really would like to keep it at 6. But I definitely can't go to 8 team members, right? That's just far too many people on a team. We don't have that much work to do for 8 human beings. What's the difference between dev mode and normal mode? So dev mode just allows us to have this nice hot reload where NodeMon is watching file extensions, especially our JavaScript file extensions. And so that means if I'm actively coding, it will go ahead and stop my server and restart my server. Versus our normal mode of just using our node server here, node server JS. This is not going to watch those extensions change. And this means that if I were actively developing, then I would need to stop my server and start my server upon every change that I made so that my server could pick up those changes and those changes would be available for me to test. So if you're actively developing, I would highly encourage the use of development mode so that you're not starting server, stopping server, starting server, stopping server, and you're just getting that free start and stop just on this NodeMon watching the file path and saying, oh, I detected a change. Somebody hit Control S or Command S, and therefore I will go ahead and restart your server for you. So here we can see, even though I'm not actively deving, I'm just showcasing NodeMon. When we would deploy code, we would never deploy code with NodeMon because we would not expect random changes on finalized production code. But since I know a lot of you are going to be actively developing, It's the only reason I'm starting my server like this is to showcase, hey, this is how I can start my server in this development mode so that as I'm changing files, as I'm updating my routes or my server or my database, I can go ahead and see those changes, propagate pretty quickly. So our server, we are connected to Mongo and we are listening on port 8888. And so here I'm going to use my REST client, and this is my REST client, Thunder client. You're not required to use Thunder client for your final, but it is a useful tool to familiarize yourself with, especially if you plan to um, do backend development and build server APIs, whether it's in JavaScript or whether you pick a different language, right? REST clients are universal. They are not, dependent upon a language. Next question before I proceed on. Yes, I'm more than happy to help arrange a team, essentially if you cannot find a team. So I know there's a lot of juggling of teams right now. That's not just, I've heard a lot of, feedback from many students about the juggling of teams. So if you are juggling a team or you're trying to find a new team or you're interested in changing teams, then please, utilize, as I mentioned, the discussion channel here. There's also the Discord. Uh, and I don't want to assign individual team members to a team. That's never my goal or my intention. I don't want to make people have to, we're not in kindergarten, right? I don't want to have to assign people to a team. But I also can't have, just one individual, working on a project by themselves, or even two individuals working on a project by themselves. It's not fair. So that means if you do see somebody mention that they need help for a team or they're looking for a team, and you only have 5 members or you only have 4 members, please just reach out, add that person to your team, assign them a task, and let them join as part of your team. Otherwise, I'm going to have to throw somebody into your team, and I don't think that's going to be, nobody's really going to be happy in that situation. But like I said, I can't just have, people being left out due to the juggling, right, of teams. And perhaps this is a learning lesson for myself to, say, hey, when your team is formed, you can't change teams. Although, again, I'm not trying to, be that restrictive. Sometimes team compositions don't work. Sometimes they do work. So, I'm trying to be as flexible as I can in this matter. But please check out the discussion forum. Please check out Discord. If you do see somebody who needs help or you're juggling teams, I would highly encourage you to do that. Otherwise, like I said, I'm going to have to just start assigning start assigning people to teams. Okay. That answers that question. Great. Back to our demo, since that was the core question. So we are here in my collections, and we can see I have the deck of cards collection. And these are my various endpoints that we developed on weeks 14 and weeks 15, and now can be utilized anytime. So when I click into here, this will bring up Thunder clients, and this is just, our standard endpoint. This is just getting the application. So we set this up, and we really just expect a very simplistic, like, welcome to deck of cards kind of app. Yeah, there it is. Welcome to deck of cards app. So this doesn't do anything. This is just showcasing, hey, if we wanted to have an endpoint that hit our local host with our port number and didn't actually, specify an endpoint, this just says like our homepage, and our homepage would just say, welcome to deck of cards. If we visited this, same endpoint in the browser here, right, again, just welcome to deck of cards. So that's like our homepage. Obviously, if we were building a lot more front end, we could have this looking a lot more great than just some simple text there. One of our core endpoints is to play the game of poker. And to play the game of poker, that is our get endpoint with slash poker on our local host 8888. And this effectively starts the poker game. So as noted in the turn started the poker game. This is going to be what deals us our original 5 cards. So I did comment. I had a ton of comments before I posted this to give a lot of context to folks who might not have been present during the full code demo of this particular application. So I expect to, get my 5 cards when utilizing this endpoint. So if I go ahead and I hit send here, I can see I do indeed get those 5 cards. So here's my deck ID, which is important for me to continue my game of poker. And here are my original 5 cards. Not too great of a poker hand if you are familiar with 5-card poker. Pretty terrible hand. But hey, that's I guess gambling in a nutshell. And we can see there are 47 cards remaining in this deck. So given that this is such a bad hand and I would like to continue with this game of poker, I need to select cards to throw away. And I think in this case, because this is such a bad hand, I'm going to throw away everything except for the King of Clubs. So I'm going to just keep this one card. In order to do that, I can see that I need to utilize my second endpoint because servers don't have a mechanism to prompt. So unlike a command line interface has the mechanism to prompt. When we're on the server side, we don't have the ability for the server to stop mid request and say to the user like, hey, what cards do you want to throw away? That's impossible. Therefore, we need 2 endpoints to really complete this deck, to complete this poker game, to complete this, cycle of dealing 5 cards and the user selecting which cards to throw away. So that's why we have our second endpoint here, is so that the user can interact with our server once again and say, hey, I want to throw away these particular cards. And of course, we need some information, right? So we do need the deck identifier in order to process that request. And we need to know the cards that the user wishes to throw away. And so that's what we're interacting with here, where this is going to return the final poker hand by discarding the cards that the user specifies and redrawing cards from the same deck. So that means going back to my get, that leads me to this. And that means I need to kind of take a look at what information I have from the original endpoint in order to proceed. So the deck that I'm using is this identifier here. And so I can see I need to use that dynamic identifier here because this dynamic identifier is what matches up with this variable called deck ID. And then I need to throw away some cards, and I can see that the cards I want to throw away are 9H, 7D, QS, and 6H. I'm probably not going to memorize that, but you might. No, I've already forgotten. 9D, or sorry, 9H, 7D. So this should be 9H, 7D for 7 of diamonds. I think it was Queen of Spades, and it was, and then 6H for 6 of hearts. So I'm throwing away these cards. So now when I make this request, that means it's going to be able to interact with this endpoint, with the deck ID being in the URL here, being this BGD identifier, which matches this BGD. And we are going to be throwing away these cards. So when we hit this send, what we expect is to keep our King of Clubs here and to have 4 new cards in here. And so therefore, that will be our final hand. So let's go ahead and do that. So there's our King of Clubs. We did get a little bit lucky and we got the 10 of hearts and the 10 of diamonds. So we end up with a pair of 10s. And therefore, we are good to go. So 2 questions coming from the chat here. So just everything on the search bar cool. I was thinking we make like a UI. No, you don't need to make a UI at all. You can just you demo this, right? There's no requirements in our final. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So if we do look at our assignments and we do look at that final project, there's no file here that asks for a front end, right? In fact, all we have are backend files. We have our package.json, our server, our routes, our history routes, our API service, our database service, and that's really it. So no requirement for a UI. If you really feel like you want to build one, you can, but that's outside the scope of the final. And that just means, remember, you want to make sure you nail these parts of the final listed here before trying to like extend yourself and build out some kind of user interface. Is it possible to build a card game like blackjack, or would it cause problems? No, you could absolutely build blackjack in the UI or in this particular interface. We just don't have that right here. But yeah, we could create another route. We could call that, we could create another folder here, another file here. We could call that blackjack. And we could set it up so where it deals 2 cards to a dealer and 2 cards to a user. And it shows, you know, the user on the first response, obviously the 2 cards they have, and the 1 card the dealer has, and the 1 card that is hidden. And then we'd have to have a second endpoint to potentially play. You know, we'd have to have a second endpoint to potentially say, okay, well, I need to, you know, take a hit, or I want to stay. So we might even need, yeah, we could use, we would need like the deck of cards, and we would need maybe something like action for hit or stay. And therefore, if we hit, we would then see the 3 cards that we have. The dealer obviously wouldn't have any change in their hand just yet. And then if we, you know, have stay, then we'd keep our 2 cards, and we could go through the mechanism of allowing the dealer to then hit if needed, right? Depending on, obviously, blackjack has some different rules. So no, we could certainly build out a different game. It would just mean we'd want to put that into a different route. We wouldn't want to overload our 5-card game and put that in the poker route. We'd want to create a new route called blackjack and start separating that out so that we don't have a mix and match of games. Just like, you know, if you think about it, if you really do go to a casino, right, there you're not playing 5-card poker and blackjack at the same table, right? Those are 2 separate games, hence 2 separate, you know, places they live. That is a great question. Thank you for that. So this does conclude our game of, you know, 5-card draw. We ended up with our two 10s here, and we can see that the remaining in the deck is 43. And then we have our last endpoint, which is kind of like a history endpoint, or a results endpoint. And our results endpoint is able to do 2 things. One, it can take no query parameter, and that means it's going to return all the results in the database. Ideally, you know, again, thinking about real world scope, probably not ideal to just blindly return all the results in the database. If this were a more production-based application, I would probably paginate this and say, okay, I'm going to return, you know, 10 results per page. And that way I'm not just dumping, you know, or trying to dump a million results, you know, to a JSON response. But since we're here in the educational world, I know that, you know, probably myself, maybe another student has maybe interacted with this deck of cards game. Let's see how many games we got going on. There's quite a few. So folks actually have been interacting with this. That's far more than I anticipated. I'll be honest with you guys. So quite more than I anticipated in terms of the games here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18. So that's pretty impressive. 18 interactions. I think we only did, I did 1 here, and I think we only did maybe 2 or 3 last time. So that means a lot of folks have interacted with this. And so I'm pretty impressed, and I appreciate you interacting with this. Our other option is to we can filter by remaining and say, hey, how many cards were remaining in this deck when this game ended. And that gives us some insight into how many cards somebody threw away. Since we know the game pretty much ends after the first throwaway because it is just a 5-card draw, right? There's not another subsequent action you can take. You only have the one chance to throw away. This can give us some insight because this means that if anytime I see 43 cards are remaining, that means I know that those particular players had pretty much bad starting hands, and therefore they had to throw away everything except for one card. And if I see a remaining a final hand of 47, that tells me that somebody had a perfect hand. So that gives us, anything in between there is probably much less insight. But in terms of, hitting the min and the max, that does give us some context into what might have happened in good games or bad games. And so here I can see that this is remaining 43. So this was actually a pretty good hand, the original hand. So I'm not sure, I didn't play all these games. Here's the game that I just played, which is the King of Clubs game, where I ended up to with these two hands here. So this might have been me testing early on, I think, or it could have been somebody editing the code and having, fun on their own. So I don't think this would be me because I probably would have kept these 8s. And one of those 8s was thrown away, it looks like. So, but it's okay. You don't have to understand the game of poker to necessarily interact with the API. So it looks like maybe we had some code editing happening, and that's perfectly acceptable. To play with the code here. So that gives us the demo of deck of cards. That was a great question. Hopefully that gives some context or some assistance in the final as you move forward. And again, all this is available for you to download and take a look at and play with and interact with. And that does seem to have happened thus far. So that's good to see. Again, any additional questions? I'm here for as long as I'm here until 8:45, or as long as you guys have questions, but officially we'll end class at 8:45, but I'll stay for any questions. Would it be possible to schedule a meeting? Yes, absolutely. You can schedule office hours with me anytime. More than happy to do that. Yes, just please reach out via DM, email, Canvas, some way. Just reach out and we'll get a meeting scheduled, and we'll we can run through what you have to see if your team's on track. But yeah, I'm absolutely open to office hours. Absolutely, always. So that sounds perfect. Yes. Any additional questions? And thank you for your questions. Those are very, very insightful. Great question. Hopefully there's only like a handful of homework 3s to grade. I think under 15 left to grade out of the 90-ish to start with. And those 15 in particular, it's like a random set of 15. There's some, I have to go back and, like I said, TA always does a first pass of grading. I always go back and do reviews. But there seems to be about some database connection issues going on with those. So I want to investigate a little bit further. And therefore, it's just taking me a little bit longer. But I would say, to answer your question more directly, I would say definitely before tomorrow evening. So I'm hoping to get those graded either tonight or tomorrow morning and get those posted before tomorrow evening so that you can have, a comprehensive picture of what your grade looks like before you go into the final. So by tomorrow evening. Would it be possible to show how to make a Mongo Atlas collection or how to connect to it? Um, my answer is not no, but I don't think I understand the phrasing here. Because what we need for Mongo Atlas, when we look at this, um, is once you've set up your Mongo Cloud Atlas, you just need your username, your throwaway password, because that's just to connect to this particular instance here. So this is your password you set up for that instance. Your URL for your cluster instance. So for educational purposes, we can see that that's what this is. And sorry, swallowed wrong. Deck of cards, your database name. So once you have this information in there, um, the way we interact with this DBJS here in services is this just accepts a collection name. And one of the great things about Mongo is assuming that all of this exists, like assuming that you are able to make that connection and you see this on startup, that Mongo is, extremely smart and it says, oh, you don't have a collection named, XYZ, I'll go ahead and create it. So in here, where I pass in my server poker games, I didn't have to do any work on collection. It went ahead and it just sets it up for you automatically, right? So so this is, the collection name. So in regards to the final, right, we need the two collections. Assuming you're connected to Mongo, it'll automatically create those collections for you, just assuming you pass in the collection name, right? So MongoDB, log in, Mongo Atlas. I really didn't want to have to do that. I guess we'll have to send a code. That's unfortunate. Let me check. Okay, there it is. This is so tiny, I can barely read that. Okay. Yeah, remind me later. I don't want to set that up now. So we can just browse collections. And if you really want, you could set up your collection in here. It's just not a mandatory thing. So we'll go in here. That's my homework 3. But if I wanted to, I could just set up a new collection. Like this is my database, deck of cards. I could just give another collection name and say another deck of cards collection. So that's how we could just do it in terms of the UI. There it is. I've added another collection to my deck of cards, my deck of cards database. Not going to be anything in there, of course. So no documents, but there's another collection if you really want to do it that way. Very, very easy. You just have your database name over here. So in a cluster, you can have your multiple databases. This is my homework 3 database. And so I'm using it because this is my CS42 apps like cluster. So I can use it for multiple databases. And then once I have my database created, I can just create multiple, I can just keep creating collections on those databases. Or if I wanted to, I could even create a new database and just say, another DB. And it wants me to enter a collection name at the time of setup. So we'll just call it test. So if you really don't like the idea of having Mongo do the magic for you, then you can certainly do it this way. To me, that's just a little bit more time consuming, right? I had to come into the UI, I had to click some buttons, which, that's not terrible. But nonetheless, I had to do all that versus just utilizing the connection and letting Mongo say, hey, oh, you don't have this collection. Let me go ahead and, create that and seed your data in there for you. Yes, we can meet after class today if you'd like. Absolutely. So depending on what time we end, obviously latest time would be close to 8:45, potentially earlier, just depending on what time the Q&A goes to. Great. I'm glad that helps. So yeah, thank you for the question. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? And again, if you don't have anything right now, it's okay. I am available, just because today's our last day of meeting virtually. I all you need to do is reach out via email and we can schedule office hours, right? It doesn't mean I'm gone and I'm not here, right? I'm here. Just reach out, schedule office hours. I'm happy to meet with individuals, happy to meet with teams. That's all you need to do. Or you can use Discord, you can DM me, ask me questions, ask questions via email, right? I'm here to still answer all of those things. I think this was your guys' original API, so I don't see a reason to, we don't need to, you don't need to approve it. I believe that was the original API. Therefore, you can obviously use your original API. No need to switch there. We'll set the time tentatively for 8:20 as, if there's no more questions for 8:20. We can close the class early. That means if you attended for roughly 38 minutes, which is a low amount of time for attendance, but nonetheless, it was promised. You get your 5 points. It's approximately 38 minutes.
Would it be added to attendance or would it be added to homework? You said it was going to deal with the lowest homework grade, but then you said there would be a separate module for attendance.
There's no such thing as an attendance grade. I just said that it's a module for attendance. No, it's going to be added to the lowest homework grade. I'm just going to do the whole pointage in one go instead of doing two separate points, right? It's either you could get 0 points, 5 points, or 10 points added to your lowest homework grade in one go, right? There's not a point to break it out since it's all being applied to homework.
Can we talk individually after class for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. There's I'll have some office hours. There will be well, let me go ahead and set up that link. There's one person ahead. They did ask first, so I just want to, first come, first serve, but I'll be available for office hours, of course. Let me set up a new meeting.
Thank you, Professor.
So let's schedule a new meeting and we'll do office hours. We'll start that. I mean, this start time, Zoom really doesn't care. I'll just move it there. We'll do a waiting room for office hours because that mimics like a real office hours, like a real office. And we'll save that. That looks good. Waiting room, yes. All right. So if you are interested in office hours, there'll be this link here that I'll paste into the chat. And so that means so far I have the order as I believe Santiago and potentially his team asked first, therefore he'll be first. I believe Irene asked second, so she'll be second. And then from there, I will take, first come, first serve after that ordering.
Oh, do you want us to join the other Zoom call or?
I'm just going to leave this one open for approximately 4 more minutes, but I will join that Zoom call as soon as I close this class.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, feel free to join that one.
I should wait over there.
Are there any additional questions that I can answer before we switch to office hours? So if you prefer to office hours, then please follow this link. Like I said, we have 2 people in line, and then once those 2 people have I've answered their questions, I'll be happy to continually address additional questions that anybody might have. Yes. Yeah, I can just let me go through the solution for homework 3 real quick. Really pretty straightforward. So as required, we import fs path and URL. A lot of this code could come straight from some of our older CLI application that we had done in the past. Let's see. Was it week 13? That was with Mongo. Before spring break. Here we go. DB completed. So yeah, we have a lot of this is, we could have borrowed from the original DBJS. And that would be perfectly fine since they gave you that code if you borrowed that from the original DBJS. But we do need to import DBJS, the new file I gave you. And then we just want to write a function called publish. That function is going to be asynchronous. And so the first thing we do need to do is connect to our database. Then we're going to read in our JSON file. First, we're going to grab the full path of our JSON file so that we have that relative to wherever we're running our application. Then we're going to go ahead and read that file using await. You could have used, really, we should always try to use promises and to use await. I think a lot of people might have done like a file sync read. And that I get where you're coming from in terms of like, well, obviously I have to read this file in before I can proceed. But the other concept is we should get used to, when we can do things asynchronously, we should practice doing them asynchronously. We get no benefit, by reading it synchronously here. Then we're going to go ahead and parse that data. That way we have a JavaScript object. We iterate through our JavaScript object and perform the insertion. Then all we had to do was write some simple query where we had name and some name from that heroes.json. I chose to query out Storm. There's no right or wrong answer as long as you did query out somebody from here. So you could have picked Poison Ivy, you could have picked Nightcrawler, you could have picked Storm. That's pretty much, any of those would have been perfectly fine, right? You had the selection So then I go ahead and I get that query, perform that find, and that returns a cursor. And so that means in order to grab that result from the cursor, I do need to await the cursor. And in this case, because I'm using a very specific query, I can use next. And now I can just go ahead and print my query, right? So this would be like the example printout down here. There's my query. There's my results from my database with Storm. I can see that did come from my database because I got that object ID right there. And then finally, I want to close that connection to the database. So pretty straightforward in terms of homework 3 here. Thank you. So after we turn in the final, after you turn in the final, you're done with class. Is there another feedback survey? Yes, there is another feedback survey. I will get that linked tonight so that you do have that available in case you're itching to turn in the final early. You can complete the final and the feedback survey together. So, all right. Any additional questions I can answer? I did say I would close at class at 8:20, which means we are over by a minute. No big deal. Again, if you've been here for 38 minutes, you get your 5 points added to your lowest homework grade, plus whatever might be applicable from last week added to your lowest homework grade for maximum to 10. Thank you. And if you are interested in office hours, just please reach out at any time. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Switch to the office hours link. Please use that office hours